Ladies and gentlemen, it's finally back. The final for now movie in the Final Destination franchise from the directors of the edgy Leprechaun reboot and the Kim Possible movie has come to theaters, and it's the highlight of their career thus far since it's the only one that actually played in theaters. And it made it to Prime Cinema. Probably the Dolby and maybe even the IMAX, because it's
also had a 4DX showing somewhere, not here, but somewhere.
Spray with water, red food coloring water, wreck your clothes.
Yeah.
So Aiden, what is the plot of Final Destination 7, Bloodlines, or 8, or whatever?
6.
6.
Final Destination Bloodlines follows the same plot as all the Final Destination movies. We start in the 50s, a woman narrowly prevents a bunch of people from dying, and because she survived the Space Needle falling because it was shoddily built and all the screws popped out when people danced on it, her entire family is cursed to die, and so they do over the course of the movie.
Yep.
Just like all the other ones. Connor, what'd you think of Final Destination Bloodlines?
Final Destination Bloodlines was a movie that treated... Final Destination was always never a very serious franchise, but this one somewhat lampoons the concept while doing it. A close comparison to this movie is The Monkey we reviewed a few months back, where it's a movie that's like, yeah, death comes for everyone. Eventually you die, and these characters are going to die horrible deaths because
it's funny.
They survived the Space Needle. And it's all done like funny, but also like they wanted to have creative gore and fun cinematography. It's by no means scary. It's never shot to be scary.
No.
No, the old movies kind of had a level of like intentional or an attempt at intensity, and then I think as the movies went on, and I've seen most of the Final Destinations. I don't think I've seen all of them, but what I noticed from like the 3 or 4 I watched, I probably watched most of them, but you got like the early ones where there's like some level of. Oh no, I did watch them all. I watched them all a couple years ago. And what you have at first is like a serious attempt at making this concept. And then eventually...
The first one was an X-Files spec script that got reworked into a movie.
Yeah, so eventually you kind of have this concept boil from legitimate horror movie into... And this happens with all horror franchises, really. Final Destination's a good example, though, but... The core idea never changes, but the focus changes. Because the first movie, you're like, isn't it scary that these people are dying? Or that was the intent to an extent. And then as the movies went on, it was like, what's cool ways we could kill these fucking people? And that's like the same idea with Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th. And like, but then like a lot of these horror franchises that last get their own gimmick. Like Chucky's, he starts getting like wives and he's silly and weird, and a violent serial killer. Freddy also becomes silly and weird and violent serial killer. Jason is like...
Jason's gimmick is that he doesn't change at all.
Jason's gimmick is that he doesn't change at all. And once they started changing Jason, that's when it all went to shit. Because just 6, 7, they started trying to like add telepathy. And like Jason, it took him like 4 movies. And by the 4th movie, like he never changed. And then they tried to do the slug monster thing where like he's actually like...
Yeah.
Jason isn't one body, the slug can transfer.
And then they finally realized that the gimmick with Friday the 13th should be changing the setting, and they did that really badly twice. And then
now,
made Jason
with the new upcoming Friday the 13th cinematic universe, I suspect it'll be how many times will people pay to see Jason kill people at a summer camp? Because what it boils down to is that's the franchise, and that's what people want to see. I mean, but you even look at like Evil Dead. Ash became a star, and it became more and more. So, as these horror movies, Saw became a lore movie more than anything. So this movie knew what Final Destination was, and it was like, okay, let's cut the pretense of it being scary. People want to see crazy and fun deaths anticipated. And one thing they also did was the old movies would be like, red herring, subvert your expectations so that the kill was more of a surprise. But ultimately that was done to add tension. Here it's just like played as a joke.
Oh yeah.
Totally and 100% of the time.
No,
Like
every single death has 9 million red herrings.
and like jokes. Like for example, there's one character, and all these characters look like people. There's Hawk Tuah Woman, Bam Margera, Mr. Beast, Kamala Harris, but young is the main character. Ezra Miller, but not a rapist, is the main character's little brother. So you got all these characters, and they pretty much play exactly what they look like, or the same vibe. Maybe not like Kamala Harris, but you know what I mean. But you got these guys, and Bam Margera. Everyone fucking dies. It's Final Destination. That's the whole point. Bam Margera has his cock ring pulled out by an MRI machine as he gets sucked into an MRI machine and impaled by a wheelchair. Well, his brother dies of peanut butter poisoning in the background. Like, it's just...
Yeah, but then his brother survives and gets killed by...
And then there's, like, twists in the middle. Like, you think that one of the characters is this Bam Margera is going to die. But then it turns out he's not actually a blood relative to them because the mother, who isn't directly related to the main character who survived the Space Needle, had an affair with the neighbor. And he just died because he was there.
He pissed death off.
He pissed death off by trying to help his family cheat death. So there's all these, like... It's a bunch of weird nonsense. But it's really... This movie's basically just a slapstick comedy movie, like a Three Stooges or something, but then it ends in, like, a gory death. Yeah. And it is startlingly similar to, like, The Monkey that came out a few months ago, because that was largely very similar, where it's like, we'll do gags and red herrings. That was literally just, what if Final Destination was a comedy film? And then Final Destination came back and said, what if we did Final Destination, but it's a comedy film?
To be fair, the script for this movie was finished in, like, 2021, and it just got put off for a while.
But here's the thing, like, The Monkey and this, it worked, you know?
Yep.
I like the melodrama of, like, Saw and stuff. And I don't think it would have been bad if they did, like, a Final Destination melodrama movie. Like, I'm fine with that. But at the same time, I'm not really mad at the direction they went with the overt comedy. And I think it's kind of like, what was it? White House Down and Olympus Has Fallen that came out in the same year, and it was the same shit.
And that,
I mean, granted,
those
Final
movies that did the same thing.
Armageddon
and Deep Impact?
Deep Impact. Yeah, I mean, it happens once in a while. Or another example from comics, you know, Swamp Thing and Man Thing came out 1 month apart. Exact same character. Granted, the creators of those characters were roommates and were probably just cheating off each other's homework. They didn't care. I mean, that's what they did a lot in comics. But I mean, it's just a thing that happens sometimes. And I think these guys were like, what if we did Final Destination, gave you all the Final Destination shit, but basically just, like, instead of trying to make it like a serious drama and add intensity, because if you add intensity and stuff, then this movie's just a slightly gorier Blumhouse movie. But if you just make it an overt comedy, like, I feel like the Final Destination format is played out, and not entirely from Final Destination, but you gotta find your gimmick. So they're like, we'll make it a comedy movie. The Monkey happened to do the exact same thing, but both were very good. I think I prefer The Monkey slightly, personally. But I did like the convoluted rules and the lore, and Grandma's an insane person, and Death is a non-physical slasher character in these movies.
Death's a silly little trickster who likes to play pranks and pretend.
Yeah, well, and like, people talk about Death and talk to Death like he's a fucking person, and like the grandma especially. There's points where, like, these like the, what do you call those?
The Rube Goldberg.
The Rube Goldberg machine kind of gets started, and then Grandma would stop it and be like, see, Death's always trying to kill me, but I'm prepared. But then finally she just lets it happen one day, because she's like, fuck it. And I kind of liked I thought that was a somewhat enjoyable idea. Like, it kind of makes a laughing stock. I do think What does worry me is if this movie is successful, and I think this is like an ideal blowjob movie. I'm just gonna give it away here. You're like, go for it, kids. But one thing I think is important to note is if this movie does good, we're probably gonna get Final Destination 7 in a couple months or a couple years, like a year from now. And I think it'll be like Scream, where there's diminishing returns, where you're like, oh, you really tried to like bring this back and do something once, and I don't know if a lot of these like horror remake bring back things. Like Halloween was the same way, but also not really. Actually, Halloween's exempt.
Halloween,
and I'll tell you why. Because
Halloween went too schizophrenic with how the sequels turned out.
Because Halloween was like, we're going back to basics, and then with Halloween Kills, they're like, we're not doing the basics. We're doing the convoluted Halloween shit again. And it's like, people wanted the basics, and Halloween Kills sucked. But then they did the same thing with Halloween Ends, except even more schizo and made even less sense, and then it was awesome.
Yeah.
I do fear that, like, these directors, if this movie's successful, go on to do, like, a different franchise, or get stuck in Final Destination. And either way, I feel like that'll water down the franchise, like they're trying to water down Scream. Like, Scream became exactly what it was making fun of.
Yeah.
Well, Wes Craven was on it, but it only got worse once it changed to fucking whoever. And not to mention the fact that Scream will be like some weird political thing because they fired a bunch of people for talking bad about Israel.
Yeah, well, it's gonna be something.
I think they should just cancel Scream. That seems like a fucking disaster.
Well, you don't want to see more Cuba Gooding Jr.'s Seinfeld-ass son?
Yeah, isn't he taking over for...
He's the lead now.
I mean, the only reason the second Scream... The first Scream movie people saw because it was Scream. The second Scream movie everyone saw because Jenna Ortega was contractually obligated to be in Scream again.
Well, she found the loophole.
Then she found the loophole, which is just talk bad about Israel. Which is a great way to get out of contracts.
The Kanye West method, as it were.
And Kanye might have went a little too far with it. I think he's just a fugitive now. He's not allowed to come back to the United States or most European countries. Or like, if Kanye ever steps in Germany again, he's going to the gulag. They're putting him in a concentration camp if he ever goes to Germany. But actually, I take that back because I want to. Just in case I ever want to go to Germany, I take that back. It was a joke. I don't know why I'd want to go to Germany. My family heritage. But anyways, yeah. I mean, I thought it was good. It was the right direction to take Final Destination. I think if they tried to do like a serious Final Destination or like bring back legacy characters, I was kind of like thinking they would try.
To bring back, they're all dead.
That's true, but you never know. Because I feel like somebody had to survive one of the movies. No one ever survived any of the movies.
No.
I saw these movies like a year
Tony
ago.
Todd, I guess.
Tony Todd died in real life, though.
Yeah.
That's why death wasn't appearing in this movie. Unless they like Grand Moff Tarkin's Tony Todd.
Yeah.
They could have done that. I don't think they... I mean, they did like to use special effects. My biggest complaint about this movie is the first, like... the first part, I get it. The 1960s, you probably didn't have the budget to make a period piece, and also the first part takes place in a giant, legally distinct Space Needle. So I can understand why they're like... Why that was all green screen. Although I do think, like, with the color correction they picked and the, like, acting and everything in that scene, it felt very, like, 2005 Willy Wonka core. Is the best way to describe it. So that was strange. But, like, the opening, like, death scenes were fun. But I also felt like they did a lot more, like, CGI blood, and I was like, please don't just be, like, fucking 2B CGI blood After Effects splatterfest. And then, like, the rest of the movie wasn't really that. I think it was just, like, the opening was like, if we want to do this, we're going to have to cut all the fucking corners. But then there were a couple scenes that you could tell were, like, reshoots, because, like, they couldn't get the sets back because of the budget and stuff, so you could just, like, see that it's, like, the same house set as always, but just for some reason the house is a green screen here.
Yeah.
And that reason is that it's a reshoot, probably. And, like, not necessarily that reshoots are bad. Movies always do that, but it's, like... There's some really obvious like green screens, and I found it kind of distracting because they weren't very well comped. The characters looked fine comped in, but it was like the scale was weird, and I don't know if it was the camera or just like lazy or what, but it kind of gave like. There's a scene in the Star Wars prequels I always think about, Episode 2, when they like got the wide shot of the Jedi walking through that empty ass room with the big ass hallway, and it's Mace Windu talking to Yoda, and Samuel L. Jackson's face is the only thing that's not CGI. And
yeah, I like that
and
scene.
like the scaling's weird, so like Mace Windu looks like he's 12 feet tall. And he's just talking to fucking Frank Oz. There's a ping pong ball and presumably some placeholder reading the lines, and Samuel L. Jackson attempts to act against it. And that's the vibe I kind of got for the first scene, where it was like some slapdash. At least those movies are like 25 years old, but like Attack of the Clones like 23 or whatever, so that's one thing. But this movie also had probably not a great budget. And I mean, I thought it was fun, and it is like a titular, like wonderfully done, like little blowjob feature. To be frank with you, I think I like the monkey hair better, but I thought it was good. And as somebody who's like a passive enjoyer of the Final Destination series, it's kind of like Saw. Like Aiden's a fan of Final Destination and Saw. I wouldn't go so far. Like I'm knowledgeable because Aiden knows about them, and I've seen the movies because they're fun to watch while I like get drunk or something. So I watched this movie and I enjoyed it enough. So Aiden, what did you think of Final Destination Bloodlines?
I loved it. It was everything I wanted. They turned it into a slapstick comedy. It's surprisingly very funny. Not just in the deaths, but there's lots of good setups and punchlines, and I like the piercing guy and his little family drama, realizing he's a little a fair child, and the setup with the sister getting killed where she gets knocked into the trash can. There's all sorts of funny little gags. Pretty obviously a dark comedy in the same way The Monkey was. It's not taking itself as seriously as...
I have a hard time even calling it a dark comedy though, because like stuff like the Bam Margera figuring out that his dad, who had just passed away yesterday, wasn't his real dad, was treated 1000% as a joke. There's like no one's ever like even remotely like sad. It like is very... It's a dark comedy leaning very just overt comedy. It's not like scary movie, but it's like it's pretty overtly comedy.
Most of the deaths are like fucking basically like Looney Tunes setups. Yeah, I don't know. It's so much fun. It's very silly and over the top and intentionally funny in ways that actually works. Like a lot of modern movies that try to be like comedy hybrids or straight comedies are fucking annoying.
Yeah.
This movie's not like quippy, and it's not like Bridesmaids dick and poopy jokes. It's just a silly, goofy movie about people dying. Definitely not as thoughtful or artsy as The Monkey was in its own way. It's much more just like, here's the stupidest and most fun things we can do with the budget, and we're gonna do.
I think this and The Monkey are very similar, but back onto our dark comedy note, I would say Monkey is much more of a dark comedy, where it's like a dark film with like heavy comedic elements, where this is like a comedy movie with some heavy gore elements. Yeah. I think there's some level of distinction, though I think if you like one, you'll probably like the other.
It's an extremely bloody Looney Tunes.
Depending what you're looking for, I think you will minutely enjoy either The Monkey or Final Destination more. Because even the theme at the end is pretty much the same, where it's like, we're all fucked, we're all gonna die, so you might as well just enjoy life. Like, it comes to the same, like, semi-cynical, but also fuck it conclusion.
Yeah, it's I don't know, it's a live-action Looney Tunes with lots of gore. I think all the kills are good. I like all the fake outs too. There's the big elaborate piercing shop one that was in the trailer that has a funny payoff, and man, I don't know. I liked it a lot. It's as much fun as you could make.
I think it's worth noting that the characters, like all the actors, were actually like surprisingly good at balancing the tone, right? Like, even like the background characters, like Mr. Beast, who was allergic to peanuts, like he's like the most nothing ass role in the movie, just over Hawk Tua. But like the guy who plays him, I don't know his name. Fucking good chance we never know his name. He's just some guy who might do some character parts here and there. I'll probably see him in a movie next year and not remember who he was. But the thing is that he was good at was like he actually had some like decent comedic timing and like was able to play the intense stuff and the comedy well, which is like a lot of the times in these movies you can't even get kids that do the horror aspects well, let alone trying to balance kind of this hybrid tone.
Yeah, the peanut guy is like perfectly kind of like dorky and awkward, but not in like a fucking not in like a Napoleon Dynamite way, but in like the kind of like prep school Fred from Scooby Doo kind of way.
Yeah, he very much Fred from Scooby Doo is a good description.
He does it really well, I think, especially when they realize it's his time next. They get a lot of good mileage out of him, despite just being a bit part. And the piercing shop guy's really good. Our lead is like the only one. Everyone knew what kind of movie this was, and that it was a comedy, and did what they could with the comedic timing and the everything else.
Yeah, it was a pretty full auditorium, and it seemed like people were enjoying themselves, even if they were expecting it to be more of a horror movie. And I also think there's like legitimately good gore, so if you're like someone who gets like freaked out by that stuff, but like still likes going to horror movies for that and not just like turned off by it, like there's some good gore that might creep you out. It actually doesn't creep me out, especially not the way they shot it or how they fucking...
No, there's no intensity.
It's not like
there's
hostile.
No horror.
There's some moments where you're like, that's disgusting, and it makes you flinch, but like...
Yeah, there was maybe like two for me.
The wedding ring guy.
The wedding ring. Lots of funny gags. I like the trash guy swiping on Tinder and listening to music.
there was actually some really funny moments. Funniest... You gotta sneak comedy movies into theaters, and sometimes the only way to do it is through a franchise of a horror movie.
Yeah, if you just turn a horror movie into a comedy, you turn a horror franchise into a comedy movie, you can sell a comedy movie in 2025.
So you do it.
No one's gonna.
we don't know. This could very well flop. But I mean, it is the horror movie in prime, and like right before the summer, like kids will be getting blowjobs to this movie up to July.
Yeah, kids are out of school or getting there, and they're gonna have some time to kill. They'll be here. They'll show up.
It's good timing, I think, and I'm guessing the budget has to be pretty minuscule.
I loved it. I thought it was great. Connor, would you recommend Final Destination Bloodlines?
Yes, it makes me really excited to check out the director's other works, and despite the fact that I didn't like Leprechaun Origins, I think I'll truly enjoy the live-action interpretation of Kim Possible. I do like how that's like what a filmography. Like, they're like, we're franchise movie directors. That's probably like what they have on their like their job application. You know, when they apply online to be movie director for whatever movie, they're like, we've done franchises from Leprechaun, Kim Possible, Final Destination. Like, definitely like, who the fuck are these people?
It's crazy to see how much they've improved since the absolutely dreadful Leprechaun.
Yeah, I mean, it's been like 14 fucking years. They did the fucking really bad. I think the other thing that surprises me too is like, and I find almost ironic, I would like them to do another Leprechaun movie, because here's the thing. Leprechaun Origins, I don't know if they were tasked or if they felt like it, but they worked with the WWE to take the comedy aspects out of Leprechaun, which is the only thing that kind of sort of works in those movies, to make like an edgy reboot.
From the WWE of all people, who are like, just the masters of making like.
And then they make a fucking horror comedy. Like, I want these guys to like take what they've learned over the last 14 years, take some inspiration from this movie, give them another shot at Leprechaun. I don't think you can necessarily dig up Warwick Davis, but you can find a new little person that's got some comedy chops.
Warwick Davis, like every 2 or 3 years, Warwick Davis does an interview and he's like, the only thing that would make me come back to Leprechaun is if it was like Leprechaun in the Wild West. These guys should just pitch it to him. Just say, Warwick, let's go for one last ride. Our redemption, your redemption. No, Warwick doesn't really need to be redeemed. But
yeah, I don't know what Warwick... I mean, Warwick has done a lot more trash than not, but I mean, he's also just like... I feel like, unfortunately, with a little person actor, like... I mean, Warwick was like... I mean, I hate to say it, but there's like... He was the generation... You got him, and then he got replaced with the... Mini-Me. Not even Mini... Vern Troyer.
Vern Troyer was kind of after him, because after Warwick, it was the black one.
Yeah, because there was the black one for a while.
And then Vern Troyer.
Well, Vern Troyer and the black guy both kind of ran at the same time, because you had like Little Man. Yes, you kind of had those two had like a concurrent run, and then like they were like, maybe we got to stop putting these little people in comedy movies as a joke. So then you got Peter Dinklage, who became like a big dramatic actor and got big off that. He's a good actor mostly.
He was in
from
Elf.
what I've seen. He did. He started in Elf in a comedy, and then he did like Game of Thrones.
Yeah. And
then they've like put. I know didn't he have like a romantic comedy with Anne Hathaway or something like a year ago? Yeah,
and then he was also he voiced the robot in Destiny for a while, and then he was like, I'm not doing this shit anymore, and they just got some other guy to do it.
I mean, so you gotta draw the line. I'm sure, like but even in like 2014, he was like Game of Thrones guy that was kind of clouded, but not. I feel like after like completing 8 years of Game of Thrones, you can start to be like, I don't want to do video game voice acting anymore. Where at the time it was probably a fat check because he was like kind of famous, but didn't have the longevity. So I don't know really why we got into the history of little people actors. Other than to say that I think these guys should try again on the Leprechaun films because this was a good comedy horror movie, and Leprechaun in theory is a comedy horror movie. It's just that there aren't really many, if any, good ones. I think the thing is Leprechaun's probably recognizable enough that if Final Destination did good and these guys were actually want to come back and do a new Leprechaun, I think if you got a director like this and they're like nostalgia, 7-8 entries of Leprechaun, Warwick Davis from Star Wars, and you like put these slides in front of a studio executive, they probably wouldn't even watch the movies and give you like $10 million to make it. Maybe you get like Jason Blum to fund it or something, but I'm petitioning to have these guys do a Leprechaun movie, or just Scream.
Well, the black little person appeared in one of the Leprechaun movies, 3 or something too. He could come back as the Leprechaun. If Warwick's too old.
I think maybe find a new Leprechaun. It's like, it would be like trying to put 85-year-old Robert Englund in a new Freddy movie. It's just, the time has rolled by. It'd be hard. We need the physicality in the role too. Like, I can't imagine being like a 65-year-old plus little person and being able to really roll with the punches there. Like, no offense, but I feel like it must be physically taxing.
Yeah, that's fair.
Or just being fucking old in general, really. It was like when they made the Hulk.
Every Liam Neeson movie.
Every Liam Neeson movie. Like, there's a time when I think like actors should retire from action, and either you're able to sink into other genres, or you can live in your Beverly Hills mansion with your sugar or your gold digger wife for the rest of your life, and then pass away and have your dog eat you until they die too, and your wife
Get eaten by rats.
Get eaten by rats like Gene Hackman. Like, Gene Hackman knew what to do. He got out and he cameoed in like 2 other movies. He lived off the fact that he was like Lex Luthor in a couple other roles in the 80s. And
I like how Sean Connery was like, fuck it, I'm never doing another movie again. And then the Irish government came to him and were like, you need to voice Billy the fucking pig in this weird Irish movie. And he's like, alright,
this is fucking civic duty, dude.
He got a parking ticket.
Oh, I'm sure they're like, we're gonna bring Hollywood to Ireland or something, and he's buddies with somebody who's producing it or something, and all of a sudden he's roped in.
Yeah.
He probably never watched the movie. He probably recorded his lines for 3 days and then
Just like Orson
3
Welles
hours.
and Transformers.
Yeah, probably. But also, Sean Connery was a dick, but like Orson Welles. But Orson Welles went like, I'm just gonna block myself off from the world and have no friends and get angry at everything until I die. Sean Connery continued to have friends because he just made friends with everybody back in the day. Yeah. But then if you weren't his friends, you were a dick to him, and if you tried to talk to him about his movies, he was a dick to you. And he also just got really weird and eccentric. Also, like, Marlon Brando falls in that camp. There's some people that just need to, like, retire and live their, like, Marlon Brando. My 25-year-old sugar baby wouldn't let me eat ice cream until I
Not every James Bond can be Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah.
Who just appears in Mamma Mia every 10 years because he
Pierce
loves
Brosnan also just, like, embraced the fact that he played James Bond, so, like, any movie that remotely asks him to, like, show up as, like,
you'll be Agent
some guy
6. Who's in a
you'll
spy
be Agent
thing.
6 in a spy agency, and the subversion is that you're evil even though you used to be James Bond, and we'll pay you $1 million. And he's like, okay.
Yeah, but Mamma Mia is his true passion.
Oh, yeah.
I like Pierce Brosnan interviews because they're like, so you got any thoughts about James Bond? And he's like, yeah, it's cool and all, but have you seen Mamma Mia 2? It's like the greatest fucking thing I've ever been in.
I feel like, and it's all the James, I think it's like James Bond media training or something that's never left him, and I don't know if he was on like an eternal contract, but even after Amazon got him, what Pierce Brosnan says anytime he's asked about James Bond is, I'm so excited for the next generation of James Bond movies, and I'm sure that whatever kid they put in the tuxedo will do a great job. Anyways, about Mamma Mia, I really liked when I sang Waterloo and had that solo. And they're like, and he's like, did you know I kissed Meryl Streep? People are like, okay, dude.
What a guy.
But I feel like, and then he'll be like, Jeff Bezos bought James Bond. Wow, I knew those producers, Barbara and whatever, for years, and I like them a lot, but I'm sure whatever kid they put in the tuxedo will do great. Anyways, we're waiting on the script for Mamma Mia 3. I don't even know if it's in development, but I'm just waiting for the call.
Anyone got some songs they want in Mamma Mia 3? We're taking
requests. I text Meryl Streep every morning religiously at 8 a.m. and I say, Meryl, what's the deal with Mamma Mia 3? She says there's no more ABBA songs to cover. I think what we should do to help Pierce Brosnan out is we personally should buy the rights to ABBA. I don't know how we'd afford that, but we'll sell our souls to the devil. We'll get Elon Musk to invest. We'll buy the rights to ABBA, and then we'll make a bunch of AI ABBA tracks so that there's enough of a catalog built up that they can
make more Mamma Mias.
Make Mamma Mia 3, and then eventually we'll quietly retire the franchise when Pierce Brosnan dies. See, because like if Meryl Streep dies, we'll recast her. It's not a big deal. We'll recast anybody, but it's really just to like keep Pierce happy. And I think that's a public service because he seems like a good guy. He's in a lot better shape than his wife, you know.
He doesn't give a shit.
He doesn't give a shit.
He looks like that.
He likes him plump, and that's fine. He's a public servant. He doesn't care. He's not like Gene Hackman. He doesn't got a wife that's 40 years younger than him that dies of like a diabetic episode and then they get eaten by the rats. Gene Hackman got ate alive by rats. Too bad he didn't get to see the new Superman movie. Lex Luthor, because he played.
Okay.
Anyhow, so yes, my opinion is I recommend Final Destination: Bloodlines. I do think comparable to the Monkey. I recommend the Monkey too, but I think if you want like a really goofy, slightly dark comedy about a bunch of people dying, this is your movie. But if you want a really goofy but slightly more dark version of this concept, you watch The Monkey. So Aiden, would you recommend Final Destination Bloodlines?
100%. Loved it. exactly what I wanted as a fan of the franchise. Actually, more than what I wanted. I just expected them to be like another kind of straightforward Final Destination like they all have. Turn it into a fucking slapstick farce. Genius. 100% loved it. Fantastic comedy movie. Wonderful. Also, the monkey's great.
Do you think if and when they make another Final Destination, they should go back to basics, or do you think they keep on the comedy angle?
It's tough to say, because I think, like...
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
The appeal of this one, like, the comedy is so overt. There was little bits of comedy in some of the other ones, but this one just goes all out with it. I think it kind of loses its impact if you just keep doing that again. I think you gotta, like, mix it up, keep people on their toes. You could... What are you doing?
Who wants the soda?
You want to sip, buddy? You want to sip? Yeah, I don't know. I think if you just turned it into a comedy series and kept going with it, I'd watch them. I'd like them. But you might start to see diminishing returns and how much you can get away with. So I don't know. Maybe the series just dies here, and it.
I think this with a lot of horror movies. And after this, we're done because we've talked way too long about this fucking movie, but. I think like all horror, I think what they should do with horror movies, instead of like Marvel, the idea is like milk it to fucking death, and now you finally have gotten to the point of death. Horror movies, I think people have less patience, but if you leave them hanging for a while, all of a sudden when it comes back, it's just the same thing. It's the greatest thing ever. Like Friday the 13th, people probably like the first one, even though it's probably going to be subpar upon rewatch. Just like with Halloween, where everyone's like, this movie's good. I thought the first Halloween remake, reboot, sequel 2018 was good, and then I rewatched it and I was like, it's pretty much okay.
I still like it, but
I like it, but it's like it wasn't as I feel like you get caught up in the hype. Like I feel like if they tried to put out another Final Destination next year, I just don't think I'd give a fuck. And I really liked this movie, but
yeah,
I just don't think I could sustain giving a fuck if they kept trying to milk this, which is exactly why the fact that they're making a Jason cinematic universe is the dumbest shit I ever heard. And it's gonna make completing my marathon even harder.
Yeah. Yeah, you bump into diminishing returns. Like, this is the highest rated, like, the most well-received Final Destination movie. And it'll probably make money, I guess, probably.
Yeah.
But, like, you gave people time to remember it fondly, and then you bring it back and do something fresh. And that's what Saw X did, too.
And then you leave.
Saw X... You know, I mean, like, Jigsaw's not...
They snuck Spiral
Jigsaw was kind of like... Spiral was like a weird spin-off, so people don't really think about it. And Jigsaw came out like 6 years before Saw X and was like really boring and safe.
I also just don't
think... And they came back after a longish break, if you don't count Spiral, and...
But they also brought back
did
John
something
Kramer.
completely
They
different.
said, fuck it, we're just bringing back John Kramer and doing something weird.
Yeah.
Which was the play.
You need to give people some time, you know?
Some breathing room.
Once the breathing room has been established, you can come back and you can do something silly and stupid and people like it again, and then you give them some time to forget it again.
Yeah, I mean, you could put out like a... God, I guess they just did Candyman a few years. I think you could probably pull off a new Candyman and make it meta or something. But I'm just saying, like... Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Just make them invisible, like in this movie. Make them invisible. Yeah, I don't know. Milking franchises to death. We all love it. We all love it.
We all love Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.